record here.
Hi, guys.
Awesome. I think we are good. There you go.
There's the lady. Recording in progress. Welcome, Metro family, to our first meeting after our first in-person party in, 14 months? I mean, I'm going to give our shout outs and our welcomes, and then my bucket fills are overflowing with the goodness that came out of that cultural, amazing event. So, you know, I'm going to just start with bucket fills and say thank you, Eve, for everything you did and the whole staff. And, you know, Evie makes us all look real good, and to the tune of having a second projector in her trunk for the slideshow. I don't know if you all knew that. I think we talked about it at the party, but so anytime you're on a listing appointment going forward and you're like, oh, I don't know if I have that, or if I have this, or my pen ran out or whatever, my battery for my cell phone, stop. There are zero excuses. The bar is now set at, do you have a second projector in your trunk, just in case the first one ever stops working? Okay. What would Evie do? So officially welcome to Metro in June. We have a lot of new faces coming into our happy family, and I'm super happy to welcome you guys in to the Metro fold. Rebecca. Welcome, Rebecca. Brianna. And I saw some of you on here today. Super excited for that. Hope. I got to meet you for the orientation this morning as well. And Jeremy. And one more, we have Richard. So welcome, you guys. Super happy to have you joining the family and looking forward to watching your business bloom with us at KW Metro. I know I started with bucket fills, but who else has a bucket fill to share with this happy crew?
I have one. My bucket fill is for Justin Brown at A+ Escrow. Justin, he's so surprised. Justin, you know you are my absolute #1 escrow officer. I write him in on every transaction I have. And I was out of town for a couple of days while we had a couple of closings that Justin handled for me. And this young man took it upon himself, when the wiring would not go out for the seller's proceeds, that he personally drove on a Friday evening to my seller's home to hand deliver their proceeds. And I know he had quite a few to do that day. My client was absolutely thrilled. They didn't have to wait until Monday to get their check. And he just always goes above and beyond. I had another transaction that we opened up on, I believe, a Friday afternoon. My client was leaving the state on Tuesday, and Justin was able to get the deed and the notary over to my seller to sign before he left town. He just jumps through hoops, and he is amazing. And you are absolutely my #1 favorite escrow officer. So thank you.
Thanks, Amy. I love you too.
You guys who you work with matters. That's awesome. So Evie has extra projectors in her car, and Justin will drive to your clients' houses, even on a Friday night in traffic, to make sure that they're happy. Who else?
I would like to second. Oh, who is that?
Go ahead, Corrine.
I just wanted to second Amy on that. Justin is amazing. He's just always going above and beyond. I'm just continually impressed by him. So thank you so much, Justin, for all your help. And Ryan White too is amazing. So thank you both. You're just wonderful. We work with great people.
Thank you. Now I'm getting all embarrassed. I'm like, okay, enough.
Stop. Go on. No, stop. Go on. Who else? Somebody else was trying to talk at the same time.
Oh, I got one. Nicole.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi. I just want to say thank you to everybody in the office. This last year and a half has been kind of an absolute nightmare for me. And, being diagnosed with cancer in January. So my 2020 with coronavirus started off awesome. But Alicia was my coach. She made sure I had groceries when I was going through my first round of chemo and radiation. Carrie Dunn, who's not with her office anymore. I barely knew her, and she would stay over and make sure that I was okay, because I had quite a few rough patches and quite a few rehospitalizations. Dahlia's always checking up on me. Linda Lee, who's, at another office, Stephen, Evie, Ashley. And then most recently I had a listing and I needed help with getting everything in because I was rehospitalized again. And Melinda really hooked me up and helped me out a lot. And then Nikki Francis too, who's been awesome with answering questions. And I'm probably forgetting somebody, but basically we have the best office in the world. And I don't think I would have been able to get through last year without everybody because my parents live in Italy. So I was kind of doing everything alone. So just huge thank you. We have the best office in the world.
I love that, Nicole. And I see Bridget and Nikki and Kareen blowing up the chat with the love for you in return. And the fact that you can give that bucket fill and have a list of people, and whether they're still here or not still here or transferred to a different office or the heart and soul of our company already, it's just beautiful. And to me, it's what has made me so happy about coming to Metro and being part of this family. And so the fact that I get to see so many of you beautiful humans feel that yourselves is really, it's making our quality of life really matter. So thank you for sharing that.
And one more person, Ed Belinky, my big brother from another mother. He actually—
Oh, not Ed. We don't care about him.
Yeah. He drove me to my surgery last July, got up at the butt crack of dawn to get me there by 5 a.m. And he's been checking up on me, and he's taken me to some appointments. So, and then Sherry, sorry, I have a million people, Sherry Peters has taken, there's just way too many people. So I'll stop. There
will be no hard feelings of, oh my gosh, you didn't fill my bucket today. The vibe is definitely coming out that you are giving all of the awesome energy for everybody who's helped. And that's beautiful. And no one will be like the Oscar speech where I forgot to thank my agent. Don't worry about that.
I blame it on chemo brain. I used to laugh at my mom for that, and it is a real thing.
Well, thank you for sharing from the heart, and thank you for honoring so many of our people who are helping you get through this together, right? Stronger together. We can, a lot of us are transplants and don't have all of our family close by. So the fact that we can be a family for each other is really a beautiful testament to what has been built here at Metro. That's awesome, you guys. So Juneteenth is Friday, and I don't know about you guys, and I won't go off the rail too far here on this one. And I know my lovely leadership team who knows how I like to crumple agendas up and throw them out the window. Don't worry, I'm not doing that. I just feel like, does everybody know? I learned last year for the first time, and I felt like I was so mad at my history books again for selling me short on life. I didn't know what it was. So Juneteenth, I'm so proud of Keller Williams for celebrating and honoring this holiday and, closing its doors and really letting people learn and discover and honor, the freedoms that humans were given way back long ago. Yeah, Claudine, long time coming. And it's embarrassing that I didn't know until last year. And now at least we can go right in the right direction from here on out. So we are closed this Friday. The business part of that is the office is closed. Of course, when you have keys and can do your business, it's open. However, for business processing purposes and anything you need the staff for, remember to get all those requests in today and tomorrow, and then we're back on Monday. And without further ado, Robert, would you like to take over our spotlights?
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it much. Let's give a few shout outs to people that are in the coaching program. In the launch and growth spotlights on Team Alicia, Mustafa closed another escrow 1 week early. Great job, Mustafa. Paul closed another new construction. He's on the leaderboard every week. I'm beginning to think Paul has some big secret. We'll see what that is. Brianna officially joined Team Alicia in launch, and Steven Erickson officially joined Team Alicia in launch. Great job. On Team Clarissa, Men got another listing in growth. Great job, Men. And on Coach Carroll, took a listing from a cold call. He's in growth coaching with Carl. And then Eric Robinson double-ended a land deal, selling that land in Borrego Springs. Great job. And Matt Thornburg opened an escrow on an off-market listing. Great job, Matt. And Lawrence Avia closed an escrow and signed a new BRE in growth. Great job, Lawrence. And Evie, is there a slide for the recently joined growth coaching program? Maybe not, but let's go ahead and announce this. Coach Carl recently signed 2 new people into the growth coaching program. Congratulations to Blake Costa and Lawrence Avila. Great job. That is it for me. Back to you. Actually, it's on to Movement Mortgage.
It is. And now back to you, Movement Mortgage. Wes, Amanda, or Ed. And wait, I saw Anthony too. So I don't know who's talking today.
I think it's just me today.
All right. It's not just you. It's fabulously you. Go ahead, Anthony.
Thank you. So really not much to report right now from us. As of the 14th of this month, though, Movement did launch a new jumbo program. So it's called the Movement Preferred Express. Great variable ratios that are available on this one. Also, when it comes to the actual amounts that are available, this is something that, we created our own. And this is something that is really going to possibly speed up the process when it comes to the jumbo loans. So if you guys have any questions in regards to it, please feel free to reach out to me. But so far from what I've heard, those that have already inquired on this program are really enjoying it and seeing some fantastic results from it. So really excited that this is part of us now.
Awesome. Thanks for that update.
Not a problem.
Justin, I know you're probably still recovering from your blushing earlier, but are you ready to talk about escrow?
I just wanted to talk about myself some more. So no. First of all, I was so bummed that I couldn't make the award ceremony. I heard from Bob Fields that it was great, and I'm so sorry I missed it. I was looking forward to it so much, but I had unfortunately another event, we'll just say, that caught in the way. So sorry about that, guys. I'll see you next time. More importantly, Lawrence Avila actually brought this up, and I've had questions about this before. California State Legislature has approved remote online notary, which basically means you're combining, we'll say, Zoom and DocuSign together. And instead of your notary needing you in person to sign docs, they would just do it over the camera. It's been a technology that's been out for a few years, but California has been against it until COVID, and then they decided, okay, fine. The technology is out there, the title companies are accepting it, but there are huge loopholes huge barricades that we have to knock down and rules that we have to follow. And every lender, every title company has different qualifications for it. So we would basically have to break it down and look at all of the closing instructions, and then confirm with title if they're okay with whatever software the notary is using. It's just a total pain right now. Plus, with our notaries, you lose that in-person experience that you have with the notary. I'm always available during loan signings for the clients, and if they have any questions or anything. And I think if we were doing that, it would kind of disconnect people from each other. And this is a people business. So I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But right now we're not really wanting to do that. Plus, for our sellers, we also have our notaries that go out and help complete the seller packages free of charge. So I don't know why you'd want to pay for a remote online notary when that's free. So anyways, good to see you guys, and happy Wednesday. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Justin. Great reminder, technology can be awesome, and maybe sometimes the in-person customer service that we have available through our vendors is even better. So thanks for that. My darling Bridget, I saw you a few moments ago sitting in front of your beautiful house of the day. Would you like to speak about charades, dear?
I would love to. Thank you, Sarah. So we were going to be doing our next office fun event 2 weeks from today. It will be after the team meeting, right at 2:30, right here on Zoom, so you don't have to worry. We were going to do trivia. However, after our Red Day event of a mini charade pre-party, I had a lot of requests to do a less PG charade event. So that's what we are going to do. So if you want to bring your kids virtually, that's on you. But if you don't, then just put your headphones in. So again, 2 weeks from today, put it on your calendar right here, same bad time, same bad channel. Now, as far as future in-person events, I want to address that because I know a lot of people have been asking me. And so we really are waiting on some compliance news. So I'm looking to the staff for guidance. So we're going to wait until they okay it. So if you're not sure what that means, let's pretend that we are in a real estate transaction, okay? And let's say that your buyer chose not to work with Movement Mortgage and they worked with a mortgage company that you've never heard of and you're not sure if they're going to do a good job. We went through all the inspections, contingencies are getting ready to be removed, and we're just waiting, and we're just waiting, and we're just waiting for the lender to get their job done. So that's where we're at. So at any given moment, we will open up and be able to do events, and it will probably happen quickly and we will pivot. But until then, we will continue to plan virtual events. Thank you all so much for your patience, and we can't wait to start doing more things in the office soon. So just be patient, and I promise we will get there. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Bridget. Love your analogy. Don't be like that person waiting forever. All right, property pitches. Oh my gosh. And I mean, I am right on time. And with how many words come out of this mouth at any given moment, that is a challenge. Property pitches. Who has a property to share? Stop talking all at the same time. You have too many listings. I can't take it. Does no one have a property to pitch or a buyer need they want to share right now publicly?
I have a listing coming up next week, if you can hear me.
We can.
Sorry, I'm driving.
You're good, Matt.
I should go on the market either next week or the week after. It's a single family detached in National City. It's got a unpermitted like extra room build on, and it needs a little bit of updating here and there. But I mean, it's probably going to go on the market under 500, to be honest. And it's on a third of an acre of land. It's in National City. Just looking for a little bit of a project. There's nothing I think that would hold up like loans. There's nothing structurally or anything like that, but definitely in need of a bit of a touch up here and there.
Awesome. All right. So tune in to Matt if you have someone looking, investor or a buyer who wants to do some work and get something under 500. I mean, that's a wild card right there. Anybody else?
Sure, I'll go.
Thanks, Dan.
I have a listing coming up at the end of the month. I'm going to be getting the actual listing taken this week and put it on Coming Soon so that you all can show it. It's in City Heights. It's a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath townhouse, no HOA. It is just currently being renovated. It's been owned. You literally get to be my next door neighbor. So come live next door to me. I would love that. It's going to be listed at $475. No HOA, completely updated. The owner has owned it for like 20 years. It's been a rental for about the last 10. And it's amazing little property. So.
Awesome. Anybody else? Usually I'm turning you away. Go ahead, Sarah.
They're not my personal listings, but I do know of 2 that are coming soon. So obviously everybody has buyers and I wanted to give y'all a heads up. There's one in Poway that has been a fresh flip. It's a 4-bed, 2-bath. Caveat, the master is pretty small, but the house itself is nice, freshly, like I said, freshly updated, nice backyard, plenty of room to put a pool in. They actually had covered the pool. And then I do know a friend of mine, she didn't give me the listing, but her father's house is going up for sale in Encinitas. It's a 4.3 and they're listing it for $775. Oh, and the Poway one is $789. Yeah, so if anybody has buyers for Encinitas, it's a 4.3 at $775. And if anyone has buyers for Poway, it's a 4.3 as well. And it's at $789.
Did you mean 1.775? In Encinitas? No. Okay, you guys, the coming soon sheet is live in the Facebook group too. So go ahead and use that for internal sharing. Remember, it's there, it's updated. It's a gorgeous thing to use for your clients and to get your stuff out in front of our own agents as much as possible. So on that Facebook, search the coming soon. If you have any questions where it is, don't hesitate to ask. We'll help you get pointed in the right direction. And if anyone else has anything, shout out now, or I will hand it over to Broker Bob for risk management.
I have something.
Okay, Nicole.
So my 2 listings, the 2 sellers wanted to list high. Now they're starting to realize it's way too high. So just throwing it out there in case anybody doesn't know. One is in Imperial Beach. It's a 4-bedroom, 5 bedroom, 3 bath. It's got an attached ADU. Rob, Paul, and I are going to be doing an open house there tonight. We're at 1795, or I'm sorry, not 1349. And they're getting desperate. So if you have anybody that's interested, please come see it and make an offer. The other property is in La Mesa, 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, 4.5 baths, just under 5,000 square feet, 2 stories, mountain views. She's also starting to realize the price is too high. So we're at 1795, but if anybody wants to come check it out, I'm encouraging everybody just to write an offer, because at this point, she probably would take something reasonable.
If you bring your buyers, thanks for sharing that, Nicole, and I want to just like put an exclamation point on that. If you bring your buyers to look at something or you think it's overpriced with your best agent eyeballs, you guys make offers. I hear so many people saying like, oh, well, it's overpriced or they don't want to bother. Like, and we weren't always in a world where everything's sold for over asking price. And because we're in a world where things are mostly selling for over asking price, people think, well, we can't offer anything else. If the house is sitting there, then there's a reason for it. So remember, if you're making a smart offer, go ahead and make the offer. Start the negotiation and get the conversation going. And Sarah, I just saw posted, it's not Encinitas, it's Escondido. I was like, otherwise everyone should be lining up to go buy that house, 4-bedroom house in Encinitas for $700,000. So thank you for updating that. And without further ado.
Thank you, Sarah. I will take this over now because we're running behind schedule and we got a big agenda today. I appreciate everybody for showing up for risk management today. Give me a thumbs up on the screen if you guys came to the party on Friday, if you had fun. You can give a thumbs down if you didn't. It's okay. All right, looks good. I hope you all had fun. I know I did. I was wore out all weekend. So we got a lot to talk about today, so I'm going to get right to it. And a majority of what we're going to talk about is what the hell does all this mean with opening? I know a lot of people, Mark and I have been posting a lot of stuff online about what the opening means, and I know there's a lot of confusion. So hopefully we'll get some of that sorted out today. And since RDR, I'm going to be doing some of that reading today on the stuff that we've posted that some people don't read, and then they call me and ask the question. But it's okay. That's what we're here to do, help support. So what we're going to talk about today, I'm always going to bring you some hot topics from SDR Risk Management. We're going to talk about the new car form FHDS again. We did cover it last time, but there's been a lot of questions that people have called me and asked about it. And the California reopening info. A new KW Metro office policy you all need to be made aware of in regards to opening. And we're going to cover again the eviction moratorium and rent control law that just went into effect and a new form that came out that you will need to incorporate into your transactions. And then I always remind people about Mark Miller's initial review and final review messages and some Q&A at the end. Okay, my risk management inside info has not changed. It is June, which means July, August, September, October, November, December, and December, 6 months away, right? 6 months away, we are going to have a new RPA that goes from 10 pages to 16. Training has started now. It is officially started, I believe, at the board, and I think at the local board it will be free. If you go through CAR, it'll cost like $50 or $75. We will train in-house. as well. But know that Mark and I are learning the document at the same time. There are some substantive changes in the RPA that you need to be aware of. So hopefully you're not waiting until December when the new form is released to look at the new purchase agreement and start writing from it. Very important you train early on so that when it is live, you know exactly what to do. Because in December, I am leaving to go to Costa Rica until February of 2022. I'm getting out of Dodge. No one's going to get a hold of me. So you're going to have to deal with Evie, who I'm passing the baton to manage contracts and the broker duty. Thanks, Evie. She said she's going to do that for me today. I'm just kidding. Okay. CAR came out with a new form, the FHDS, which is the Fire Hardening and Defensible Space Advisory Disclosure Addendum. So what does this form mean? It's required for sellers of residential properties that contains 1 to 4 units that are constructed before January 1st, 2010, and that the seller is required to complete a TDS, and these homes are located in high or very high fire hazard severity zones. Basically what it does, it says that the seller is responsible to have a defensible space perimeter around their property of about 100 feet. Because if you've not noticed, we're in the midst of our first heat wave in San Diego and potential high fire zones. And since California or Western region US is a tinderbox, this is important because they need to make sure that the homes have some safeguard in case there's some fires. Where do you locate the information if you have a buyer or seller in what is considered this high fire zone? Well, the seller has the obligation to determine if the compliance with the fire hardening defensible space requirements are applicable to the seller and the property. How do they find that out? Well, it comes from the NHD Zone Disclosure Company or reviewing the company's report within that. So as a listing agent, the method of practice when you take a listing is you need to, and you think it's in a high fire zone, is to order the NHD right away and work with a very reputable NHD company to determine if the seller is obligated to make sure that they're required to do this. It's not a point of sale requirement, but it's going to be a requirement of who owns the property down the road. Even if the property is not in either of the zones specified above, or the seller is unable to determine whether the property is in either of these zones, or it's a mountainous area or covered lands, brush, blah, 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 a seller may choose to make the disclosures below because a buyer might consider the information material. So I always learn, when in doubt, disclose, disclose, disclose. And even if you don't know, disclose. So as a standard of practice, and I have Mark on the call here today as well too, Mark, from the compliance department, what are you asking people for the FHDS if they know or don't know?
Well, this form is a lot like the TDS and the SPQ, where, it's like, are you the seller aware of? And then, there's a series of questions. And so when an agent's presenting this to a seller, that's basically, how you should present it. Are you the seller aware of any of these features that may make your home vulnerable to wildfire, as shown in 3B there? I understand that there's going to be a lot of specific questions on this, and we just ask you to send us those questions as they come up. There are 2 other links that you're going to get in a moment that are to a third-party website that explains what fire hardening is, and then also a quick guide from CAR that helps answer a lot of these questions. So please open those links and bookmark those for future reference. The other thing I wanted to mention is that this FHDS form, replaces the previous form, which was called HHDS. It incorporates the questions that were on the HHDS into one new form along with the fire hardening. And aside, this fire hardening issue is nothing new. It's been a law in California for some time. It's just now that they're requiring sellers to disclose to buyers, these conditions. And again, Robert mentioned it's not a point of sale correction a seller needs to make, but they should be doing it anyway because it's the law. But if the seller, sells the property to the buyer and it's not done, the buyer then has 1 year to do this. So these are all topics that'll come up in the course of conversation. I think a lot of your answers will come from these two quick guides or these two resources, the quick guide and the website, but please send us questions that you have specific questions that you encounter as you start to use this form.
Thank you, Mark. So again, it covers sales of properties, sales of residential properties 1 to 4 units. You got to determine where it's located. And as Mark says, sometimes you might not know, but if it's pretty much in East County, you can pretty much guarantee it's in a high fire zone area. If it's in Metro, probably downtown not, but maybe along a canyon somewhere in City Heights. Could be, because that canyon could be a defensible space. So it's really important, one, that the listing agent make sure that they order the NHD report at time of listing, but two, if you are representing a buyer moving in, buying a property that can be considered one of these high zone areas, that the buyer will eventually be responsible for making sure they have that 100-foot perimeter around the property. So the last thing you want is a buyer to say, well, your agent never told me that. So that's why this form is really important. And by the way, this is one of the other forms that has the right of rescission. If it's not given with the disclosure packet, the buyer could technically cancel up to the day of close of escrow, even if all the contingencies have been released, because this has been discovered after the contingency release form. Any questions on that? You're all like, no.
I have two. I put them in the chat.
Well, I can't read the chat.
Okay, that's
I can see it. And
on my screen, so go ahead.
That's why I unmuted. So the first. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Melinda. So her question was, what about condos in downtown, and does it impact townhouses, just single family residents? It's any 1 to 4, and what really drives it is whether the NHD report identifies the property as being in a high fire or fire zone. And I have a little bit of an issue with this only relying on the NHD report, because my information I've received from people is that sometimes NHD reports use different maps to calculate or determine these things. And if it's in a wildfire zone, what do you do? That's not a high fire zone or a severe fire zone. The two different categories that they have in NHD, what do you do then? So, we with the prior form, I forgot what the acronym is. We were just recommending that if the home was built before 2010, it be added to the disclosures. It is a statutory disclosure. Then, like Robert was saying, the TDS is an SPQ. Those are statutory disclosures. FLD, lead-based paint, that's statutory. And they do, if they're not completed, they do give the buyer a right of rescission. Melinda's second question, is there a vendor who can evaluate if the home has a suitable 100-foot perimeter? And that's an excellent question. And the answer is CAL FIRE, or you call your local fire department and ask. Because typically it will be CAL FIRE who will be doing these evaluations. And then, but sometimes there are local rules by local fire ordinance or fire companies or, services that would also be responsible, or maybe even have slightly different rules than the state rules. So that would be who you would contact for that information.
So I put in the chat box the link to the defensible space and hardening your home. So this is a good thing to bookmark, save, and send to your buyers and or sellers in a transaction, because this is the resource they need to become knowledgeable about. We always say the one reason why agents get in trouble or a buyer or seller comes back to sue you and the broker is because they always say, well, your agent never told me that. Your agent never told me that. So, and you guys are really good. I haven't had that excuse in years, but a lot of other brokers in San Diego County have it.
Can we talk for a minute about the responsibility and the onus of responsibility and how maybe we're anticipating it's going to play out, whether it's the, I guess that whole area just feels a little bit gray right now, and maybe a conversation would be helpful.
Yeah, I think this website that's up right now will give you some information on that. Again, this is nothing new. Defensible space is nothing new. It's been a law for some time, and homeowners are supposed to be doing it. But now what's new is this form to disclose it to buyers. So, I'm sure that there are going to be many homeowners who are like, oh, I never heard of that. I didn't know anything about it. But it is, just like water conservation is a law that, they may not know about that either. So it's not, anything new. Creating a defensible space around the property, the disclosure part of it is now new.
So, Susan, I wish I had the answer to that, but we won't know how it plays out till it plays out.
As you run into these specific questions, email them to us, and we'll, give you the answers we know of, or we'll find answers for you.
Next thing, we've got to get through this because this is probably where you guys are going to have a lot of questions. We all got the news that California's reopened, no masks, everybody can do whatever, except some parts of businesses where we are mandated by the Department of Public Health. So, Mark and I did send this out, and I'm going to read through some of the important stuff on this, on open houses and showings. Will there be any restrictions on open houses or showings? The only legal restriction will be for wearing masks. Otherwise, there will be no restrictions. So there's no physical distancing will be required for guests, no cleaning, no posted rules, no PEDs. Celebrate that, people, no PEDs. Or any other type of sign-in. No one will have to agree to an office prevention plan, and no one will have to attest to the current health status. Except if the seller is demanding it. So that's the caveat. Some sellers are still queasy about having people in their house and not having cleaning protocols. So if you have a listing that you have right now, or you're taking a listing, your responsibility, fiduciary duty, is to ask them, how do you want me to handle people coming in your property? Because some sellers are still looking for safety mechanisms in place. The rule is masks will not be worn during a showing if everyone is fully vaccinated. Don't you love this rule? But how are you going to guarantee everyone's fully vaccinated? But during an open house, masks will be required because even if a single unvaccinated person enters an open house, then everyone must be masked. Don't you just love government rules when they put out a mandate or no mandate, and then all of a sudden there's all these caveats, and you go, what do I do? So really kind of, and the last part on it, my seller wants to require that everyone entering the property wear a mask or be vaccinated. Can a seller require this? Absolutely yes. The seller can set their own rules as to who will be admitted to the property. They can require that everyone wear a mask. They can even demand that all people entering be vaccinated or show a negative COVID test. Just obtain the seller's instruction in writing. And it says your office may require that the listing be formally amended. a simple email in your communication log is fine with us to make sure that the seller says, yes, this is what I want. If the listing agreement addendum, the RLA-CAA, has already been signed, you may now want to add a modification of terms by writing the following into the other paragraph. The RLA-CAA dated blank blank is terminated. But for those sellers who want to keep certain restrictions or showings, you may want to add optional language such as, with the exception of, or the following showing requirements shall be followed. So you can put that in a modification of terms for your listing, probably best. But you give the point is you give the seller the option whether or not they want to move forward with that.
And may I add that if they decide that they do want you to enforce these protocols, it probably would be an excellent idea to put that in the MLS listing so that visitors know that in advance. You could check with SDMLS if it would be appropriate to put that in the general remarks or the confidential remarks.
We'll email out this PowerPoint in a PDF that should have the live links to everything in here. But I have the live links to the PDFs as well as the live links to the CAR website that goes over this. What I covered, the visitors wear a mask, visitors be vaccinated, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You don't need to put the posted rules of entry anymore. Mark, what is the new form that they came out with? The new, was it RLA LOH?
Well, there's a form called LOFA, which is if the seller has previously signed the July 2020 RLA-CA that said open houses are prohibited, they can amend that election with the LOFA form. All your new listing transactions, from the past, let's say week, going forward, have the new 520 RLA-CAA in them, and that does not need to be amended because it permitted open houses. However, we just spoke about the fact that the seller may elect to completely remove the RLA-CAA from the listing agreement, and that would be done with modification of terms.
Thank you. Now, what do you do if you're doing an open house and a visitor shows up at an open house and refuses to wear a mask? What if that one Karen of the neighborhood or that second Karen shows up? Well, that person may be reasonably accommodated by giving them the option of wearing a face shield. According to the CDC, persons exempted from wearing a face covering due to a medical condition may wear a non-restrictive alternative, such as a face shield with a drape on the bottom edge, as long as their condition permits it. However, seller still does not have to agree. Seller has the option as to who he wants in his house and not in his house. What if a visitor in the above scenario will not accept the offered reasonable accommodation? Do not dismiss their concerns out of hand, discuss it with them, and consider other alternatives such as a private or virtual tour. So give them an option for that. What about rules pertaining to door knocking and handing out flyers? I get it. We've been asked that multiple times. Peggy, are you listening? These rules will no longer be in effect. You can door knock and hand out flyers. However, take necessary precautions because you don't know what kind of person's door you're going to knock on and whether they're accommodating to you wanting to even knock on their door. So be aware of that, because you don't want to get a DRE complaint that you are harassing them. Any questions on that?
A couple more questions in the chat.
Okay.
Let's see. Andrea Walsh asked, can we see Vax cards? And I think that is addressed in that quick guide that we just had up on the screen. And I believe the answer is yes, the seller can ask for that. And Melinda is talking about how she doesn't want to have to enforce these rules because, she may have a situation where someone isn't vaccinated and isn't wearing a mask and doesn't want to, be the enforcer of the rules. And, again, what you should do is try to offer some kind of a reasonable accommodation. You know, would you do this or could you do this? And in this case of it's an inspector, you know, a service provider, I would certainly think that they would, you know, comply with that. And if they're not, then maybe another service provider can be selected.
Isn't that fun, Melinda? Get to be the enforcer on some things you don't want to enforce. That's why I want to crawl under the covers and say, you guys deal with it.
Can I ask you a question? Sitting here laughing because it's people who are not in the field making these rules. You guys have no idea.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
Those guys have no idea. Yeah. You want to have that combo with the best inspector I got.
Yeah, no, we understand.
Yeah,
but they're
it's fun.
And this is where CAR legal interfaces with, you know, the state government agencies, saying, look, what you're doing here isn't reality. It's not practical. And so they go to bat for us, you know, because they know what agents are facing in the field. So they do their best to try and get these state agencies to, you know, work or comply or not make rules or guidelines that are workable, let's call it.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead, Peggy.
Okay. Did somebody mention you can ask somebody for their vaccination card? Did I hear that right?
The seller can. If the seller is asking for everybody coming into the house to present a vaccination card, and you've written that into the modification of terms for the listing agreement, then anybody that enters the house must show a vaccination card.
And again,
and what is it I heard about a HIPAA violation to ask anybody if they've been vaccinated?
It's not a HIPAA violation.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
My point is on that, it's the seller setting the rules for people coming into their house. This has nothing to do with us or the broker or you as a listing agent. It's what the seller is requiring. So if you have a listing, you have to give the seller the option of what they want. It's their personal property. Go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, again, if you run into this situation and the seller's asking for these things, make sure that you contact SDMLS and say, look, the seller wants this. Do I put it in regular remarks or confidential remarks in the listing? And make sure that you advise, in doing so, you advise any visitor of that in advance. So you can't receive these objections. Well, you didn't say that in the MLS.
All right. So how does this go into our office policy now regarding a mask mandate? And this has been very challenging for business owners because basically we have not been giving, the state says one thing, but the Department of Public Health says another thing. And the state says full opening, no masks required. And the Department of Health says, no, if you have a business, the business has to do this. I'm not going to go through his broker and have everybody show me their vaccination card unless they want to. Yet I have to reasonably accommodate the people in our office that have gotten the vaccination and are saying, Howard, I don't feel safe in this office because I know two people down, they don't want to get the vaccination. And it's like a no-win scenario for me because on one hand, I want to keep both sides what they feel is their rights. And the other hand, I've got to make sure that we follow what Cal OSHA is saying in the Department of Public Health. So moving forward, until further notice, and this could change at any time, face masks are still required in the office in common areas unless you are vaccinated. If you are vaccinated, you're welcome to wear a mask if you desire. If you desire to not prove you are vaccinated, then you must wear a face mask. So what does that say? If you are vaccinated, you give us we're going to keep a tally of who is and who isn't. You're going to show us your vaccination card. That means you have the option of not having to wear a mask in common areas. If you are renting an office and in one office, two people, one of them is vaccinated and the other is not vaccinated. The one that is not vaccinated is obligated to wear a mask if they're in the office with the one that is vaccinated, if they're in there at the same time. So that's, hopefully you guys will work that out if you're office mates. So I wish I could make all this go away, but I did not create the coronavirus and I didn't create all the rules, but I'm trying to accommodate.
Okay.
Do I have?
We are making progress. We are making progress. You know, if your transaction was started after yesterday, no PEDS, no RLA, CAA. So we are making some progress.
Do I have any questions on that? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Mark, what you just mentioned about PEDS, if the transaction was in progress prior to, so if we're in the middle of a transaction, do we still have to do PEDS or can we just stop?
It's a great question. I would say if you have them, upload them. You know, technically, the documents that were signed prior to 6/15 call for them to be done. So unless you're
but anything after 6/15, like any new entries, like today, do I need PEDS for those?
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and next thing, the residential eviction and rent control advisory. We discussed this on last call, and I'm still getting questions on this. And it basically took effect on June 3rd of this year. And here's what it means. So this is concerning properties that are for sale that have tenants in it, or properties that a landlord wants to sell that has a tenant in it. Can they evict them prior to putting it to market or ask them to leave? Or a property for sale that has a tenant in it and they want to convey the property with the tenant in it. Okay. Basically, the San Diego County Board of Supervisors did a 2-month extension or month and a half extension on the moratorium, or 2.5 months on the moratorium for eviction. Landlords and properties may not give a tenant notice of termination of tenancy or take steps to evict a tenant for any reason, unless the tenant poses an imminent health or safety hazard to others at the property. Previously, just cause was they wanted to take the home off the market, they wanted to move into it, or they wanted to put it up for sale. That just cause went away for a few more months. In the event the property owner wants to take any steps towards evicting a tenant for any reason not authored by the San Diego County Ordinance, the landlord could be subject to liability for retaliatory eviction and wrongful eviction, as well as for payment of tenant's attorney's fees and costs. So if you have a potential prospect for a listing with a seller that has tenants and they want to bring it to market, you have to tell them, you need to speak to an attorney before I even can take the listing and take it to market if you want the tenants removed prior to close of escrow, because I can't guide you on it. The new moratorium does not allow you to evict, even if you want to put it up for sale. The bigger concern is if you take the listing and the seller says, well, I want to put it on the market with the existing tenants in place, and then you as a listing agent accept a purchase agreement where the purchase agreement says tenants to vacate prior to close of escrow, well, now that seller can't perform on the contract. So if you're a buyer looking at tenant-occupied property, buyer, you need to guide them and say, Chris Spade, are you on the line?
Yes.
What do you tell your buyers if they want to look at a tenant-occupied property?
No effing way.
Okay. Yeah, don't waste your time with it, because if the buyer is expected to move, thank you, Chris. If the buyer is expecting to move into that property as our owner-occupied and there's a tenant in it, and they go to close escrow, that they can't get the tenants out, they're SCREWED. So you need to understand and navigate through that with your buyers. Otherwise, your buyers will have a reason to come back and sue you because you didn't guide them properly. So basically the RLAS, that's where a seller stays in the property after close of escrow, and or the SIP, the seller in possession. These are very serious transactions if you're winning an offer in an accelerated real estate market where the buyer's willing to give the seller carte blanche and even to stay in that home after close of escrow. And then all of a sudden you close escrow and that seller decides, now this is the bad case scenario, but let's say the seller decides, you know what, there's this moratorium. Let's just stay here for another month or two. They can't evict us. You need to, any tenant occupied property representing buyer or seller, that you tell that buyer or seller they need to consult with a licensed California real estate attorney on what that means. Please. You're going to save me and Mark a lot of headaches and keep our attorney not as busy as she would like to be because she bills by the hour. Just FYI, bills by the hour, which we may bill back to you if you're not following broker guidance.
There is, also this, or there's some questions in the chat, Robert, about, what about month-to-month leases? If a lease expires, then that's not an eviction. And one of the things that I don't know that we're clear on yet is if there is, a tenant can be evicted for violating the lease. So like in the case of an RLAS, residential lease after sale, the tenant or the seller says, I'm going to stay here for 45 days. And on the 46th day, they're in violation of that agreement and eviction proceedings could begin. But, it's not a COVID-19 related moratorium in that case. If a tenant is doing something in violation of the lease, technically they could, be evicted for the violation of the lease. But the real problem here is that this is all in flux and all the courts and attorneys that do landlord tenant are all backed up, and it's better to try to arrive at some kind of an understanding and move forward rather than say, well, okay, I'm going to evict you and go through a process that could take months.
I have a landlord in my HOA that is trying to evict a tenant, not for COVID, but because she's a horrible tenant and she's violated the terms of her lease. And this landlord, my neighbor, has had to spend thousands of dollars on an attorney to try and get her out, and she's refusing to leave because it's not COVID related. Here's the final piece of advice on it. Anyone considering buying, selling, or renting a property located in San Diego County is encouraged to speak with a California licensed real estate attorney to determine how the ordinance may specifically affect them on their property. Failure to do so is against the advice of the real estate agent and broker. So this actual advice now in Glide. Mark, it's in the risk management library for SDR. It is in Glide, but I have not seen it in Zip Forms yet. So you will access this form through Glide to give to your principal. Any questions?
There are a couple more questions in the chat about month to month and other scenarios. But the point of this is that you have to advise these clients to seek the legal support. And because every situation is going to be slightly different, and we're trying to answer a question where the lease is not in front of us, so we don't have, all the information. So trying to locate, okay, here it is. What we typically are doing now is providing clients with this link to San Diego County Bar Association phone number and website. They can contact them and probably get a free consultation about their situation without having to engage an attorney. They usually give some free, 15 to 30 minute consultation. So that would be the recommendation. If there's any kind of a tenant occupied situation, advise your principal to seek the legal advice. That's your duty under NAR standard of practice.
And I'm looking for another link that Carr put together.
And there's another excellent point that Melinda has posted here with regard to SIP and RLAS is to add a penalty per diem amount into those agreements as a disincentive to the seller to stay in the property to stay over or extend their period beyond what was agreed to. And in this case, she said $500 a day. What you do by adding that is, you increase the damages that the buyer has incurred by the seller defaulting on the agreement. And when they do go to mediation or to small claims court or superior court, they can substantiate they have these damages. So remember to put those per diem penalties into SIP and RLAS forms so that you give your buyer some leverage in the situation.
We did have in the resource center in Google Drive a document in regards to SIP and RLAS. And I'm going to pull up that link for you and give it to you. It's important that you read through that as well, because it will help you give some understanding when you're guiding people, to give them resources for them to do their own due diligence. That's the most important part for them to do, is to do that. But that will be in the PowerPoint that's sent out as well too. Okay. All right, we're at our time.
One other point in the chat, Stephanie shared that one of her clients quoted $175 for a legal consultation. That's pretty reasonable, given the other end of this. If it goes the wrong way, the costs that could be incurred, and that's good insurance money paid for a consultation.
All right, if there's no more questions, you guys have been troopers. I hope this helped today.